Greetings! It's time for another book review. Why am I wearing this hat? Because look at it. That's what I thought. Alright. I lost my book. Today we are going to look at a book called The Diviners by Libba Bray. This book really caught me by surprise, I'm not going to lie. Also, in this review I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, which can tell you that I kind of enjoyed the book. When I hate a book, I'll spout spoilers all over the place, but when I like it and think that you should read it, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers. Let's read the back. Something dark and evil has awakened. Evie O'Neill has been exiled from her boring old hometown, shipped off to the bustling streets of New York City, and she is Pos-i-toot-ly ecstatic. It's 1926 and New York is filled with speakeasies, Ziegfeld girls, and rakish pickpockets. The only catch is that she has to live with her Uncle Will, who has an unhealthy obsession with the occult. Evie worries that her uncle will discover her darkest secret, a supernatural power that has only brought her trouble so far. But when the police find a murdered girl branded with a cryptic symbol, and Will is called to the scene, Evie realizes that her gift could help catch a serial killer. As Evie jumps headlong into a dance with a murderer, other stories unfold in the city that never sleeps. A young man named Memphis is caught between two worlds. A chorus girl named Theta is running from her past. A student named Jericho is hiding a shocking secret. And unknown to all, something dark and evil has awakened. Sounds pretty awesome, am I right? So let's grab my handy-dandy notebook and talk about this book. First, what I liked about this book, and I'm just going to come out and say it, I really did like this book. Even though I'm going to talk about some of the problems it has later, I think the good things that I'm about to list outweigh the bad things. So, the good things. The characters are excellent. So well done, so well fleshed out, so interesting. They are not the archetypes that we're used to. They all have very unique and real personalities. They all have things that you're going to like about them. They all have things that you're going to dislike about them, just like real human beings that you would actually meet. How cool is that? That's really rare. Evie is the main character and she gets a gold star because holy crap. She is about as far from Bella Swan as you could ever get. She is not an author vehicle or an audience vehicle. She is a viewpoint character through which the audience can see the world, but she is not a blank slate for you to paste yourself on. She has a very strong personality. She makes a lot of mistakes. She's a little bit derpy at times, and you will love her. She's awesome. Well fleshed out, amazing. She is definitely one of my favorite characters. I don't think I have a least favorite character. Well, maybe I do, but they're all so good. Like, there was never a moment where I was like, oh man, we have to go hang out with this character now. I was always like, yeah, whoever. I don't care, all of them, yes. There's no Bella Swan, there's no Golden Trio, no Harry, Ron, and Hermione running around. The setting is great. It's set in the 1920s, as you read from the cover, and that is very unique. Especially for a magical teenager type of story. If you like the magical teenager type of story, you're kind of used to them right now. They're all kind of falling in modern times, or a modern character ending up somehow in the past, you know, in medieval times somehow. This is in the 1920s, and there was a lot of like spiritualism and a lot of belief in the supernatural still going on at that time. So it makes a lot of sense. The writing in general is very good and snappy. There's not a lot of reuse of buzzwords like stupid Twilight has, where it's like dazzle, sparkle, used 80 million times. No, the writing is very solid. I'll talk about some problems it has later. I really liked that Evie has a best friend who is a girl. You don't see that very often. Like usually the bestie is the opposite gender, so they can fall in love. She's got a best friend who's a girl, and they have a believable friendship where sometimes they have a falling out and they argue, but they get back together, and it's great. It's believable. All the characters are so believable. I'm just gonna say believable 80 million times. I have a buzzword. The only sad thing is that Evie's friend just kind of vanishes toward the end of the book. I'm assuming she's gonna come back in later books, but it's like, hey, what happened to her? She just chilling, I guess. Okay, let's get on to the not so good in this book. There's a lot of good, and it definitely outweighs the not so good, but there's also a lot of not so good. And a lot of it, I think, is down to more my opinion and my preference in style of book. So stuff that I don't like, you might actually think is a plus. Because I'm an author, I notice mistakes that other authors make, which is good. That's what you're supposed to do when you're an author. You're supposed to notice what other authors are doing. This author likes to use qualifiers, which I do too, as something I struggle with. Things like very, like saying a character's very excited instead of just saying they're excited. That's not to say you should eliminate all qualifiers, because sometimes you are just a little afraid. But a lot of times they are unnecessary. You think to yourself, okay, is the character really a little afraid, or is she just straight up afraid? She's just afraid? Okay, don't use the qualifier. This author uses a few too many of those, I feel. This author really likes to, this frustrated me, repeat stories and scenes for which we were present. We read that scene, and then she has us watch the scene, and then she'll have a character to tell the story of the scene to another character. We don't need to hear it again. We were there at the scene when it happened. You should just say, Libra, you should just be like, and then Evie told her uncle the story of what happened. And it's that simple. We don't need a repeat of exactly what we just heard. Sometimes this author can be a little wordy. I like a lot of her descriptions. She has very good turn of phrase, but sometimes you're just like, okay, we get it. We get it. We get it. Stop describing this now. We understand. Yeah. I feel like this book could have benefited from a firmer editor, an editor who was just like, this is unnecessary, get rid of it. There still would have been a lot of awesome book there, but it could have been tighter. Now, if you like a book that has a lot of description and sometimes it rambles a bit, and there may be a few unnecessary scenes, they do build up the character, but there's so many character building scenes that you're like, okay, I understand these characters now, can we please go fight a bad guy? But if you like that, if you like your book to be longer and to kind of go on, and I know people like that, I have a tendency to prefer a book that's more concise, gets down to it, doesn't waste any time. If you prefer something that's a bit longer and slightly more rambling, which I understand is something that some people like, this might be a plus for you. I was also annoyed, this is a matter of personal preference. This is part of a series, and I have problems with it for that reason. I feel that every part of a series, you should be able to pick up book 2 in a series and understand it well enough to start your reading from book 2. Or book 3 or book 4. I think that a series, you should be able to do that. Some series are great at it. I started Harry Potter in the middle and had absolutely no problem understanding what was going on. Other book series, I've tried to start, like, you know, say I went to the library and they only had book 2, and I was like, okay, I'll book 2 a try. Nope, impenetrable, had to have read book 1. And this feels like it's gonna be one of those, because the author gives you a lot of information about characters in book 1. Characters that don't have much bearing on the first book. They're delightful characters, you love spending time with them, but characters like Theta, you know she's going to be a bigger part of the overall story in the next books. But she's not now, she's just introduced now, and we find out a lot about her now. And that is going to be a lot to recap in the next book if the author is going to do it the way I would like to see it done. And so I don't think you're going to be able to pick up the second book in this series and understand what happened in the first one very well, unless this author takes her love of repeating scenes to the next level and just sort of repeats everything. But we found out very deep stuff about characters in this book that these characters don't actually participate in the big overall storyline very much. And I would not have introduced so strongly these characters if they're not going to come up very strongly in this book. I would prefer that she had saved these characters, or most of the deep stuff for these characters, until the book where they're really going to start to be used. So that's just probably me, but it annoys me. I can sense it coming, and it annoys me. There was a love triangle. This is again another problem with the series thing. There was a love triangle, but it was very understated. I liked that it was definitely not the focus of the book for the first half. I think Evie was oblivious to the love triangle that she was a participant in. She was just not even interested in that. And at the end, she does get to be with one of the people in the triangle. I won't tell you who, obviously. But again, it's frustrating because you know it's going to be a series, so you know that she's probably not going to stay with that person. In the next book, she's probably going to go to the other person from the triangle. Maybe bounce back and forth a bit. Because it doesn't seem likely that she would have got that happy, alright, I'm in love now and this is the person I'm going to be with forever, from book 1. So you know that it's sort of like, oh great, she's with this person, but it doesn't feel like a happy ending because I know she's not going to stay with them. There was the hero goes alone trope, which frustrated me in this book because there are so many amazing characters. So many. Why was Evie by herself at the end? Not that she didn't handle it. It was good to see a strong female character kicking ass and taking names at the end of this book, but she didn't have to be alone, and that annoyed the crap out of me. That's all I'm going to say. My last gripe, again about this author's style, she changes point of view a little bit too much. She's very schizophrenic about her characters and which point of view you're in, and that's something that I have struggled with in my writing and that I have really tried to overcome, is to write more concisely which point of view I'm in, and to stay in one character's point of view for a long time. Because with this author, Libba Bray does bounce back and forth a bit, and it can get a little bit confusing. Like, oh, whose head am I in? Whose point of view am I watching this through now? Whoop, I'm somebody else now. It can get a little bit confusing and a little bit frustrating at times, and you just want to be like, just pick one and stay. Okay? Alright. But, with all of those gripes aside, clearly a lot of research, a lot of effort, and a lot of love was put into this book. So I give it a stamp of definitely check it out, especially if you are a fan of fantasy, if you are a fan of period fantasy, and if you are a fan of like the magical teen sort of stories, but you want something far more substantive than most of the other stuff that's out there. Get this book right now. Why are you even still here? Go to your library, go to your bookstore, get it. You'll love it. You won't regret it. Check it out.